Hello, all you beautiful, sparkly humans. I am really wanting to offer up and share some support this week as we move to Election Day tomorrow. I just dropped my ballot off, and I wanted to just pop on here and talk a little bit about the astrology this week and next week, even though I'm not going to be talking about the lunar cycle right now, although what I find very interesting is that Hi, Anna. I find very interesting is that the sun is in Scorpio, which, if we're looking at the two nominees for president, whatever that means anymore, puppet master. No, they're not the master. They're the puppets. If we're looking at the sun sign of one of the candidates is Scorpio. Biden has a Scorpio sun fitting. And the moon will be in Gemini, which the other presidential candidate, Donald Trump, has a Gemini sun. So really interesting to see how this will all play out. Mercury will go direct on Election Day. Mercury will go direct in Libra, which is the sign of fairness, justice, balance, restorative justice, beauty. Right? Like, what a beautiful day. We'll see. But Mercury being retrograde while a lot of people are voting hasn't happened since 2000. And we all know, well, if you're old enough, what happened in the election year of 2000 and the issues that came up after the election. Now, of course, if you're feeding into the collective fear right now, you're going to be pretty well aware that there's a lot of hype going on right now about the instability of our country and the instability of whoever becomes the next puppet is going to somehow cause this mass conflict within the country that's already experiencing that. So what's interesting about that, right, is that the astrology is showing us that we won't necessarily know exactly who is president right away. Many astrologers, visionaries, and psychic folk have said something that isn't very soothing to a lot of people, but they've said that 2020 will be the last election. Now, we could take this and we could have a lot of fear around it, or we could take this and have a lot of hope around it, because let's face it, things aren't working. We can pretend that there's a lesser of two evils, but really it's the corporations that run our country. And that has been happening since, I think it was 1894 that there was the beginning of the courts, which is Libra, the courts ruling in the favor of corporations, okay? And this has continued to happen. And so the hope, if you're on the side of trust and love, what we can feel into at this time is the opportunity to move closer into a new paradigm, into a new way of doing government, into a new way of really working together and focusing on what we all want, instead of focusing on identifying ourselves with a certain puppet that they're all ruled by the same corporation. So that all being said, sorry, I was trying to keep this very non-biased. It's not working. It's very difficult. Okay, so if we're in the stream of love, trust, and peace, one of the things I want to remind you guys as we are coming out of this Mercury retrograde, with Mercury being in Libra now, going direct tomorrow in Libra, is that it's really important to know what you stand for outside of your political stance, outside of a certain man in office. Like, what do you stand for? What will you stand up for? And at your core, what are your most important morals and beliefs? And that becomes important because we get to choose how we rebuild this whole thing, right? And if we're focusing on the wrong thing, which we've been doing for a really long time, If we're focusing on the wrong things, we're not going to get anywhere. So this new way of being, this new way of focusing on what we want and who we are at our core, and what our morals are, can really pave the way towards getting us closer to what we want. Okay, so Mercury is going direct tomorrow in Libra. We also have the Sun over there in Scorpio, and then we have Saturn still in those last intense degrees of Capricorn, which Saturn is forming a square to Mercury retrograde tomorrow. So all the themes around Capricorn, all the themes around Saturn and Capricorn are highlighted even more when we're having a square between Mercury trying to go to direct and getting squared by Saturn. And one of the things that I will say about this whole Saturn cycle that's ending in December, thank goodness, remember I've talked about, if you've watched my videos, I've talked about this is the test. Like, can you stay grounded? Can you stay committed to what you truly believe in? Can you stay kind? Can you stay compassionate? We're getting tested right now. So that's going to happen even more. And this end degrees of Capricorn is the most intense, most intense part of the chart in the sky. And if you've watched my stories, I often will do like nighttime stories where I'm showing you like, yeah, this is what, all of the stuff in 2020 that we're being confronted with. This is how it shows up in the sky, right? And so the last little hurrah that we're getting of 2020 is happening now. And it's intense. And this is the time where we really have to focus on what matters most to us and taking good care of ourselves during this time. Jupiter and Pluto are having their final dance together in Capricorn for a very long time. We won't see that transit again in our lifetimes, actually. Jupiter in Capricorn is expanding on all of, Jupiter doesn't like being in Capricorn. It makes it work too hard. It makes things like drudgery. And so Jupiter in Capricorn can expand upon the work we need to do and like showing us the work we need to do. And we're like, no, I don't want to see all that work. But inevitably, we need to see that work. We need to expand on that work. Pluto in Capricorn will be there till 2023. I think 2023. And so we have a couple more years of intensity with Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto and Capricorn, Pluto is the power grabs. Pluto is the things we don't see that are happening behind the scenes. When I talk about the puppets, those puppet masters, and who's really behind the scenes, Lorax style, like who's trying to bottle air right now and, play off of everybody fighting with each other, right? Like who's shaking the jar. So Pluto and Capricorn is all about power grabs, and also Capricorn has to do with government, has to do with systems. Capricorn has to do with work and the public and the things. Pluto is like showing us the things that have been hidden from the public. Now, this last conjunction, I want to remind you, it happened in April, I think 4th, which was when we first saw the economic fallout, like obviously from COVID, like, oh, if we shut everything down, like that's not good. And then June 30th was the next, and that was like another layer of that, like, wow, this is really bad, like really, really bad. So the next one is November 12th. And I don't tell you that to be in fear. I tell you that because we're going to be shown the work. We're going to be shown another thing that happened this year and was highlighted through those conjunctions was the billionaires that made even more billionaires, made even more billions, I mean. And so we might be shown that. Pay attention to what's really happening here. And that conjunction also will be happening in the last degrees of Capricorn. So look at where that is in your chart. If you have personal planets there, you're going to feel that more intensely. One thing that I've learned on my journey is that during the last election, I had a major autoimmune outburst that I hadn't had in, I think it was like a decade since I'd had one. And what I really realized is that our culture and our society wants us to think that we're selfish for taking care of ourselves. and for making sure that we're not exposing ourselves to things that possibly we don't even have control over, and keeping us out of the way of the things that we do have control over. And so for this election, for this time period, it's just ultra important that you focus on what you can control and you release the rest to God. You release the rest to Spirit. You release the rest to Source. And one of my favorite things is meditation and praying for the people and holding people in light that are so lost by the darkness, that are so tied up into the power and so tied up into just wanting to make more billions and more billions and more billions. So as we're moving around the next week for sure, because we have November 3rd, well, it'll be the next 10 days. November 3rd, Mercury direct in Libra, but we'll go back into Scorpio. And then we have Jupiter and Pluto conjunct November 12th. Then, friends, Mars will go direct on the 13th. And I'm just saying, if in these 10 days we have the choice to go nutsos and go crazy and feed into the fear, and I just see so many people sharing things about civil war and like what are you going to wear to the civil war? Like, why would you want to feed the ugly right now? Why would you want to feed that in your life? Why would you unknowingly or unconsciously be pumping the world and our communities up with more fear and more separation? Why instead wouldn't you be holding that space for love and light and holding that space for us all to figure this out together? Because guess what? If you look at the solar system, we are just this one little dot, one little space. And we've been coming on here to this earth plane, to this earth classroom for a very long time to try and figure this out. And we're just going to have to keep coming until we figure it out. So take good care of yourself and check out my free webinar in my profile if you're interested on November 15th. It's a great, perfect time to join us. Have a great day.